So hey y'all, welcome to the part 2 of the beginner makeup series. I sound like I'm reading it off a paper, but I'm not. I'm just having this rap influence at this point of time. So we're going to be doing our part 2, and now that you've finished part 1, which is about understanding your skin prep, you should have your skin prep and you should be ready at this point of time for doing the part 2, which is where we're going to start off with makeup. So we're going to be talking about two important topics today, and first is primers. And next up, we're going to talk about skin correction. So we're going to talk about these two and how to do it, how to use it, product recommendations and all that. So let's start off. Okay, so the first topic that we're going to be talking about today is called as a primer. Now, what is this primer? It's basically a product which you use after your skincare and before you do your makeup. And why do we use this? It's kind of like a way to prep a wall. It's a way to prepare a wall with a certain coating depending on how we want either the finish to be. So first is the finish of your makeup, like once you finish the entire look, how you want it to be. And secondly, it could also be because of your skin texture. Now, there are certain primers which are basically used to enhance your skin texture, to basically work out, to minimize pores or to kind of make your skin look a lot more smoother. For all that kind of stuff, there could be hydrating primers also to help more with some kind of dry patches on your skin. A primer need not be an overall like full face and neck kind of a product. You can even spot and very selectively use it. For example, if I'm using an oil controlling primer for my face, I'll just use it on the areas like the place where I'm very oily, like the sides of my nose or maybe the center of my forehead and my chin. Now, coming to me personally, I do not like using a primer. And the reason because I find my foundation or my skin tint or whatever I'm putting on my skin to be as effective as I want the final finish to be, where I don't really find the need of having another layer which is into my makeup, which is a primer. There used to be a time when I used to love using these kind of mattifying primers, and that used to help me to keep my makeup a lot more long lasting. But now I have my own routine which works perfectly well for oily skin. And I'm going to link that for you down in the description bar below in case you need to go through that. So now that we've figured out our primers, let's move ahead to understanding color correction. Now, what exactly is color correction? Do you need it? Yes or no? So let's talk about that. So color correctors are super subjective because that is going to vary depending on your skin and how your skin is overall. So now we're not talking about skin texture. I want you to understand skin discoloration. So skin texture we spoke about in the last session. So let's talk about the discoloration factor. So discoloration is basically where your skin tone is kind of uneven. So there could be certain areas which are darker. Like if you see my under eyes and my forehead, there could be certain pimple marks and all that kind of ones which are again darker. You could have a little bit of hyperpigmentation on your upper lip, your side of the lip, chin, sometimes all the way around your mouth, sometimes on the cheek, sometimes on the jaw, sometimes on the forehead, in any amount of places. Now this is completely normal. It happens to all of us. It's just something which is there, right? Now, if you want to kind of work across this entire thing, so now let's kind of understand what is our target. Our target is to have even skin tone. So how do we get uneven to even skin tone? You have a 3-step process to achieve this. So first is color correction, second is concealing, and third will be your foundation. That's CCF basically. So color correction, concealing and foundation. Now, if I want to kind of go ahead and follow this routine, you need to understand that this is not the same routine for everyone. What I do will be different compared to what you do. So the best way to understand is to kind of figure out how it is for your skin and customize it. If you see my face, I don't have a lot of discoloration. For example, the hyperpigmentation around my mouth isn't a lot. I just have a little bit in these two corners, which isn't very, very, very dark. So, with respect to my skin tone and the hyperpigmentation, what is hyperpigmentation? Any kind of skin tone difference is hyperpigmentation. So, my skin to the hyperpigmentation isn't a lot. It's probably like 2 shades darker than my skin tone, than my natural skin tone. Whereas when you see for some people, they could have certain areas of their skin which are 3 to 4 shades or even higher than that, lighter or darker than their skin. Lighter is when you get white patches and darker is when you get the darker patches. So now you need to see your face and understand whether those kind of patches are extremely dark or whether it is just like 1 or 2 shades darker or lighter than your skin. So in case that the discoloration is around 4 to 5 shades lighter or darker than your skin, at that point of time, you will need a corrector to cover up all those areas. Now, one thing that you need to understand is that a foundation and a concealer is not going to give you that amount of opacity. The coverage is not going to be so high that it can cover up those areas where there is such intense pigmentation. Because of that, what we do is that we go ahead and we use a product called as a corrector. You might have seen a lot of pictures where people get that grayness, or you might experience it too. Like certain areas like the under eyes or the mouth area, your skin will start looking gray in case you have done your foundation. It's a very, very, very common problem. You will see a lot of pictures of that going around in the net. So what basically happens is that in case you just go ahead with a concealer and a foundation on your skin where there's extreme amount of hyperpigmentation, is that it's kind of like you have a very dark t-shirt which you're wearing, and on top of that, you put a white shirt. Now, will this white shirt be able to cover up this dark t-shirt? It's not going to look white, right? It's going to look like a grayish kind of a shirt. That's basically what's happening with your skin. So when you put your foundation, you end up with those gray kind of patches, which is something we don't want. Hence, what we do is to kind of go ahead with a beige layer. That's the reason why we use like beige camisoles under a white top instead of a white one or a colored one. So when you put a beige camisole or a beige kind of a product, you are basically cancelling out the color, and that way the white shirt will end up looking white. That's basically what we're going to do with our skin. Because the pigmentation is so darker or so lighter than our skin, we are going to use a color corrector to cancel the color out. Instead of covering, we're actually cancelling it out, and then we go ahead and we cover that color. That way your skin looks like your natural skin tone. So this is the target for today, and this is what we're going to be working on achieving. Now, the first step that what we need to do is to understand what are these kind of random colors and who needs which color and where do we use which color. So I'm going to insert a color wheel over here for you, and a color wheel is a totally huge concept. And just one thing which I wanted to understand from this is that colors which are opposite to each other in the color wheel will cancel each other out. So let's say that you have some red spots, or you have a red patch, or you have a very really angry looking red pimple. Now that is red. Now what is the color opposite to red in the color wheel? Green. Hence you use a green corrector on those areas where you have a little bit of redness. So let's say your skin has a little bit of hyperpigmentation, which is darkness, and that is kind of like on the bluish kind of purple side, and the color opposite to that is an orange. So we use an orange, which is a corrector for those areas where we have a little bit of hyperpigmentation. I'm going to start off with an orange corrector, which is the LA Girl Pro Concealer. For me, peach also works and orange also works. Sometimes I mix up this with my concealer, and that way it becomes a peach kind of a tone. So you can do that too. So what I'm going to be doing is that I'm using a liquid corrector, a liquid orange corrector. The reason I'm using a liquid is that liquids are a lot more kind of easily blendable, and they kind of shear out really well. So I'm using this on areas like where do I have darkness, like under eye and all those kind of areas. Hence I'm using a liquid. Whereas for the green corrector, I'll be using a cream. That way it gives me more intensity and it's a lot more opaque, and I need that to cover up something like a really angry pimple. So I'm changing the consistency. It's either a liquid or a cream depending on the amount of coverage which I need on the skin. The thickness and the opacity, that is basically your coverage. So we're going to start off with the orange corrector, and let's understand, like on my face, where do I really have a lot of pigmentation. Now if you see, mine is like over here and here. It's not too bad, but it's like kind of there. So I sometimes need it depending on how my skin is, and sometimes I can always skip on it. It's not too dark at this point of time over here. It's not too bad. So I'm just going to use like the most tiniest amount on those two places. A problem area for me is this. If you see, this part of my skin is a lot more darker. The under area is not dark, just the sides are a problem. So we're going to use a tiny bit over here and here. Use less. If you want, you can add more later, but once you put, you can't remove it. So I don't need much on the side, but what I do is I just use a tiny bit in these two places. So that's about it for me with the pigmentation. Now what I'm just going to do is to use a brush and I'm dabbing it on my skin. I'm not pulling, because when you pull, your product is going to move. Remember, pulling is like using a broomstick and sweeping. So it's like you pull the dust from one place to one more. But I want the dust to be over there. So why would you want to pull? So you're just going to kind of pat it. I'm patting it. I'm not pulling. Less pressure. Do not stamp onto your skin. Just use really less pressure and pat and blend that into your skin. So I'm going to do the same thing with this. You see how much little I used and how well that kind of just disperses across the entire patch over here. This is something which a lot of us have, especially in South India, the forehead patch, and it's okay. It's just normal. I sometimes don't even do this. Like I just let it be and I just go ahead with my foundation and it kind of covers it up. So using that tiny bit, so this was enough. I'm just going to take this off and we're just going to blend that in. Okay, so that's about it. So in case you have a dark spot anywhere, like a dark brownish kind of a spot, you can also use the same orange corrector on those dark spots, like a really old acne scar which is like dark. You can use the same orange one on that. Now when it comes to my skin, my spots are all reddish in color. Like even a scar is more of a reddish tint than something brownish. Hence I'm using a green color corrector, and this is the Seri Faded color corrector in green. It's just a really cute cream color corrector. So I'm using it with a brush and I'm gonna apply it on those areas where I have a bit of red patches. Sides of my nose get a little red, and so you're just patting it on that redness and you will notice that the redness just kind of immediately goes away. How much corrector do we use is a very commonly asked question. So I would say that you will apply the corrector in a way that the redness doesn't show through, or that kind of grayness or the darkness doesn't show through on the skin. That will be the right amount of it. So in case it's showing through, apply like another thin layer and then you should be good to go. That's all about color correction for this video, and now I'm going to move on to doing the concealing and the foundation towards the part 3 of the video. So stay tuned for that and I'll have that posted as soon as possible. So I hope you found this video helpful and let me know more down in the comment section below. Drop down all your questions down in the comment section below, or you can DM me directly on Instagram. So I hope you found this informative and I'll see you guys for another one. Until next time, bye bye.